Hello. Oh, great, this works. Awesome, so I guess I'm live streaming to YouTube now. Just want to turn the audio off for myself, and let's change the title of the stream. Um, and this stream is going to be about, much like the previous video, it's going to be about documenting my cognitive pursuits, documenting cognitive pursuits. Um, and yeah, so I think this stream, I'm not sure I'm not sure yet whether it is going to be depth-based or breadth-based. I've yet to decide that, but uh, but I think documenting cognitive pursuits is a working title for now, and I think I can update the description. Uh, I've categorized cognitive pursuits I undertake into two categories. Okay, uh, I think we can go with this for now. And click on save. Okay. Let me open up an incognito window and check if I'm able to actually view my own stream in another window. Okay, I guess this works. Awesome. So, what am I going to be doing today? Well, I think I'm probably going to be working on the shell project. So yesterday I completed the Go tour, and I uploaded the uh, live stream that I broadcasted on Twitch to YouTube. Um, but yeah, so this morning I was just thinking, so how do I want to spend my time? I want to spend my time engaging in cognitive pursuits. And as the description says, I've divided up cognitive pursuits into two categories, depth-based and breadth-based. So depth-based is essentially becoming an expert in a field, and I've chosen computer programming, software engineering, computer science as a field to become an expert in. And breadth-based, well, I want to be broadly knowledgeable and have interesting conversations with people. So yesterday I broadcasted my live reading of the Wikipedia article on Frankenstein, which was uh, which was actually quite helpful. Um, However difficult it was. And yeah, so uh, today what I want to do is, uh, yeah, it's either depth-based or breadth-based, but I'm not sure yet. Um, and yeah, this morning I had an idea uh, of perhaps contributing to, in order to get back up to speed with Go. considering that I've written a lot of Go in the past. Um, getting refamiliarized with it. In order to do that, I browsed through a few open source Go projects, and I uh, was considering contributing to them. However, uh, I decided to not do that because, uh, yeah, actually, that still is a valid option. I could do that. I could contribute to an open source code project. However, I was just thinking, for example, some of the most popular uh, Go projects, such as Kubernetes, for instance, are uh, involve many computer science concepts, such as distributed systems, networking, um, security, and such like. And one of my considerations was whether uh, it whether an undertaking such as this would be worth the investment. Uh, there are some practical things as well that I need to consider. Um, and yeah, I think it was not a very thoughtful decision. However, I think it's something to start with. So I think that I will continue to think about that. But in the meanwhile, to do something easier, I think I will continue working on one of the easier things I can do is uh, to continue working on the Go shell project, which I have been working on Codecrafters. And yeah, honestly, Codecrafters I think is a blessing. It um, yeah, it helps when you are uh, you are looking to gain momentum, uh, and you don't have uh, the uh, patience to actually to go through a complex project and um, divide it up, divide up tasks yourself, divide up, breaking up a very large project into chunks, and you know, um, implementing bits and pieces of it and putting them all together, so that um, the design element is kind of taken away. So it kind of eases you into uh, developing something. So uh, I think that would be a good uh, that would be a good thing to work on. Right. So let's work on that. Before that, I'm quite hungry, so let me close this, open this back up again. Okay, you're probably not able to see it, but I'm controlling other windows on this screen, and only the Codecrafters window is visible to whoever's watching. Uh, I'm not clicking on thin air, if that's what anyone's wondering. Okay. Let me just pause my microphone for a few seconds. Okay, I think I'm back up again. Uh, Let me just double check. Great. Wonderful. Um, so yeah, let's work on um, depth-based cognitive pursuits. More specifically, becoming an expert computer programmer, uh, and computer scientist and software engineer. I have a lot of thoughts about what each of those specifically mean. However, I will get into them probably during the break. Uh, because now I want to get started with writing some code. So I think here is where I was a little taken aback last time because it turns out that the change directory system call handled relative paths itself, so I didn't have to do anything. I didn't have to make any modifications to my program in order to get the stage working. And I remember looking at one of the code examples and where they explicitly uh, handled the relative paths case, which I found confusing, to say the least, uh, because I'm not sure how they implemented um, their uh, CD. First of all, let me just think. Uh, a process has a directory associated with it. That is, a process on Unix-based systems has the way we've built abstractions is that a process has a directory associated with it. And uh, CD is we want to change the process's directory. But how do we do that? Well, we've got to ask the operating system to do it for us. And how do we ask the operating system to do something for us? We uh, invoke a system call. And uh, the corresponding system call is chdir. That's the Linux system call. um, okay, that's the Linux system call. Uh, man chdir. Wow. Okay. Let me share my terminal screen now. Properties, terminal. Hmm. Is that what I want to be sharing? Yes. Okay. Is it possible to select multiple windows? Okay. I think I'm sharing my terminal now. Oh yeah, it's pretty interesting. So I actually have the blur effect enabled, but it's yeah fascinating that the uh, um, the capturing program is unable to see past the blur uh, because of the I suppose it's because of the API that macOS provides um, uh, to to allow for different modes of screen sharing. And here it seems to have been implemented really well, where it is possible for a window to set its translucency to a non-zero value, but in the uh, resultant input to the program that calls the read screen API of the operating system, the translucency doesn't exist, which is very cool. Yeah, I wonder if KDE has this functionality. Anyhow, so man chdir, uh, so every command in So manual pages in Unix-based systems are text files that uh, document commands and system calls and yeah. So if you have a program on your computer, the you can the program uh, can update the manual to add its own documentation. And uh, so main pages have different sections, and different programs are required to register themselves with the appropriate section. Here, chdir is a built-in, so by default, I suppose that uh, the way the command works is man looks for the term in the first uh, looks for the first occurrence of the term that we whose documentation we're looking for in um, any of these sections, and here the sections seem to be ordered. And I hypothesize that um, the man goes through each of these sections in sequential order. But it turns out that system calls, the section of the man page, of the man book rather, that uh, the document system calls is number two. So man to chdir will give us the system call uh, documentation for chdir. So name chdir, fchdir, change current working directory. Interesting. So uh, both of these terms have the same documentation page. Synopsis, pound include uni standard library.h std is, I'm not sure what std is, but in this context, because I assume that it's not the C standard, it's this standard C library. Yeah, I don't know, but interesting. This is something to make note of. So the chdir system call is in the uni std header file. Files, is this the file descriptor? The path arguments The path argument points to the path name of a directory. The chdir function causes the name directory to become the current working directory. That is the starting point for path searches of path names not beginning with a slash. Okay, the starting point for path searches of path names beginning with a slash. Okay. The fchdir function causes the directory referenced by files to become the current working directory. So I think this is the file descriptor, the starting point for uh, path searches of path names not beginning with a slash. And we have slash itself. In order for a directory to become the current directory, a process must have execute search access to the directory. Yeah, this is another thing about Unix that is uh, um, interesting. Uh, Because I would assume that having read permissions on a directory would allow, hmm, yeah, I'm sure there is a rationale here, but I do have a question about the design itself. I think it's a valid question. Upon successful completion, a value of zero is returned. Otherwise, a value of -1 is returned, and no is set to indicate the error. Right. This is conventionally how errors are handled in C. Uh, uh, the error no variable is set to indicate the error, and these are different uh, constants that represent the different constants that error no could be set to, which give us more information about the error itself. And yeah, this is very thorough, but it's interesting to see how Go improves on this by um, thinking of errors as uh, interface type, and which uh, documents itself by implementing an error method which returns a string with information about the error itself. So uh, all I have got to do in the calling or the yeah, the caller function, all I have to do in the caller function is um, print the error. But of course, yeah, I could have different code paths or control flows depending on different kinds of errors. Um, However, yeah, I'm just saying that if all I were to do were print the error, printing a string description of the error would be more beneficial compared to printing a number, which we then need to reference uh, cross-reference with a table of error numbers and information about the error. And another thing here is that um, the error can't consist of any field. So yeah, so I think error handling in C is very bare bones. And I do think that we need better abstractions for errors in programming languages. I think Go seems to have improved. It seems to be an improvement to me. Okay, let's get to writing some code. Um, so that's the system call. Here, we're expected to uh, make that system call from Go, or call that system call, or invoke that system call from Go. Uh, so let's open up a text editor and have a look at how our code uh, invokes that system call. Right. So, so this is how I implemented it. It turns out that the OS library wraps the chdir system call for use across different operating systems. And it turns out that uh, the abstraction of a process having a current directory is uh, across different operating systems that Go supports, which is interesting. And yeah, the whole error unwrapping thing that I had to that I think is actually beautiful. I remember um, having the whole error unwrapping thing. I remember um, uh, understanding in depth and feeling a sense of feeling and the emotion of awe. And I think last time, however, I didn't fully uh, go depth first on this uh, particular case, and I don't have off the top of my head understanding of this now, which is a little unsettling. Which is anyhow. Um, so it turns out that the chdir system call automatically handles relative paths, so I don't have to do anything. So why is it a separate stage in Codecrafters? Well, I could process the path, uh, and I could write a queue. Uh, I could create an abstract data type. I could create a queue, uh, break up the path into components, and every time I see a dot dot, I uh, hmm, pop from the queue. But what if there are all there are dot dots, right? So what do I do then? Then I'm just going to uh, yeah, I think that this is not something that we should actually handle at all, because this is something a lot more complicated than it looks. Yeah, I believe that this is a lot more nuanced than it looks, and so we're we should leave it to the operating system. Oh, here we go. So here the path argument to CD is consisting only of dot dots. Oh, okay. I guess um, the way this works is we've got to start from the present working directory. And wow, okay. What would CD slash dot dot slash dot dot print? So here I'm trying to get to the grandparent of the root directory. I think it would print no such directory exists. Logically, I think that that's what should be printed because there is no such directory. Uh, however, I feel like it's qualitatively a different error compared to the no such directory error. So I think I would rather print out of scope, path out of scope, essentially. Yeah, I think I would print path out of scope. Wow, okay. So this, oh, hmm. So the parent, turns out that the parent of the root directory is the root directory itself. Hmm, why? Oops, this is not a symbolic link either. Um, right. So that would depend on how uh, the dot and double dot um, files are handled in Linux. Cool. This is pretty interesting. But turns out that essentially double dots, uh, if trying to get to the parent of the root directory results in the root directory itself. That's the takeaway here. That's the piece of information that I should take away, or I am going to take away rather. Um, Let me grab food real quick. I don't think it's been too long, but pretty hungry. Grab food real quick. All right, I'm gonna be back very quick. Okay, so I hope the chewing sound isn't too annoying. Let me hear for myself. Yeah, I think it's not too bad. I think it's okay. All right, let's continue. I'm gonna eat and at the same time. Okay, so here, what I've got to keep in mind is that trying to go upward at the root directory results in getting thrown back at the root directory. One of the points of confusion I have is how um, the current directory and the parent directory are implemented. I assume that they were um, links. However, on second thought, it seems uh, my intuition tells me that it's somewhat untenable to do that because um, yeah, I'm not sure what it would look like. It's fuzzy in my head. Um, but I think for this task, we can just write a queue. Hmm. Wait a second. So I didn't actually get the idea uh, of putting the present working directory, breaking the present working directory up, putting it in a queue, and then from there, handling paths. From there, handling paths. But that is going to take another system call though to get the present working directory. Oh, apology. I'm looking at the Codecrafters screen. Mm, let me bring that back up for y'all. Properties. There we go. So I'm thinking about PWD. Why I didn't think of it. What I was thinking was uh, we start with an empty queue, and um, my uh, uh, the problem was when there were dot dots where the queue was empty, but it turns out that any number of dot dots never cause an error because in the worst case, if there are an infinite number of dot dots, we're just gonna end up in the root directory. Given that uh, performing the dot dot in the root directory takes us keeps us in the root directory, rather loops us back into the root directory. Right. So I think one of the first things we can do is, given a path, we can try to ascertain whether it is a relative path or an absolute path. And it is an absolute, it's a relative path if it's not an absolute path, and it's an absolute path if it begins with a slash. Slash. Wow, that's a difficult word to say. Slash. Slash. Okay. Um, so anything that does not begin with a slash is a relative path. So we're going to have to, okay, sorry. Yeah, I'm just thinking about it. I'm just thinking about, I'm just linearizing my thoughts now. I seem to be looping on confusion a little bit, which is another thing I'm trying to, which is something I'm training myself to choose not to do. Okay. So I think whatever we're going to implement, that is creating a queue and so on, it's it would be done. It would be done by the it is already performed by chdir, either. Yeah, I think it would, and I'm trying to think about whether or not it calls PWD, a system called PWD under the hood. I think it does, and uh, because it's not two different system calls within the kernel. So once we get into the kernel mode, it's not two different system calls. So um, we're saved the price of context switching. We can actually confirm this. We can actually just look at the source code and confirm this. Uh, let's do that. Uh, Okay, so I actually don't know how the Linux operating system code is structured. And in addition, there seems to be a point of confusion about whether uh, we're looking at a system call or whether we're looking at a function defined in the C standard, the standard library, uh, because it seems to be documented in the system call section of the manual. So I wonder, okay, interesting. Okay, so this the system call is associated with an operation code, which does make sense. However, documenting it would be a pain, or finding its definition would be a pain. Right, this makes sense. So system calls in by the kernel are not offered as functions, but rather as opcodes. So standard C libraries slap a helper function on top of these opcodes for us to uh, more abstractly call these system calls. So that makes sense, and that explains why the chdir command is in the chdir um, function is in the unistd.h file, which is part of the standard C library and not part of the kernel itself. Uh, and the question is, where is this implemented? Uh, where in the kernel is implemented? It's interesting. Interesting that it's defined as a macro. Well, fs open.c system call define one chdir. Perfect. User path at. Mm, where is user path at? There we go. Last word is dot dot. Last word is dot, which is written as ASCII. And here there seem to be considerations of big endian and small endian architectures, which is yeah, it seems to be a very complex process, uh, all in all. let me take a quick break just to process everything that I'm seeing here. I have a lot of thoughts right now, actually. So just wondering, uh, yeah, there seem to be um, basically a maze of system calls, a maze of function, a maze of functions to follow in order to implement something as simple as changing processes directory. And plus we have macros uh, and endian considerations. Uh, and then we have the fact that uh, system calls are need to be called by using opcodes and not uh, uh, function names. So there is so we require the standard C library to slap a layer of abstraction over system calls. And this is quite complicated, I feel. Oh yeah, the facial expressions are you try and focus on the audio, um, uh, just to ensure that the audio is working and ensuring that I'm not mute. It's interesting when you're live streaming, you get to see and notice things about yourself that you wouldn't have noticed otherwise. Or not when you're live streaming necessarily, but when you're watching yourself being, or when you record yourself, watch yourself behaving. Um, and it's quite interesting. But it allows for correction that otherwise would be uh, presumably more difficult, which is the positive here. Um, Even though it negatively balances the contents of one's consciousness in the short term, it sets one up for long-term success. I'm trying to find music that I can play without worries about the legality of playing said music. I'm really not familiar with what exactly copyright really is and how it's enforced and what piece of document one must have in order to prove ownership of ownership of of an artifact of music. However, um, I'm practical too, so I'm looking up. I just asked ChatGPT for uh, websites that allow us to browse classical music that have no copyright uh, restrictions. And it recommended useopen.org, uh, which seems to be a very simple and accessible website. Actually, this is as much as I want to do for now. Let me, I don't know, take a power nap, think things through, and I'm probably going to be back up very soon. But yeah, for now, this is goodbye. Bye.